Welcome to Previewing the Ring. Today I'm going to look at No Mercy 2017. Couple of predictions. Let's take a look. Alright, first up I am going to do the Bray Wyatt versus Finn Balor match. Now, considering previous Bray feuds, everybody involved have done a good job to get to this point. Now, that's mainly due to Bray cutting promos where he doesn't ramble nonsense all the time, and he actually makes sense while he's been doing this. Balor as the Demon, he beat Bray Wyatt at SummerSlam, so there is a little bit of motivation for Bray. Now, all the stuff on Raw with Goldust and Bray wiping off his paint and saying, see, he's just a man underneath, it fit nicely into these two's dynamic heading into No Mercy. Now, with all of that said, Bray loses. That seems to be his thing. Now, a couple months ago on a pay-per-view, he actually beat Seth Rollins clean. Of course, the next night on Raw, Rollins gets that win back, 50-50 booking. It seems to be how it works. But I believe WWE's trying to keep Balor looking strong coming out of this match. He never lost the Universal title, so keeping him strong heading into whatever plans they have for him post Braun Strowman, Brock Lesnar Universal title match, I think it will just do well for a Finn Balor here. So, calling for a Finn Balor win. All right, Cruiserweight Championship match, Neville defending against Enzo Amore. In what should be, in my opinion, the easiest match of the night to pick, you always have to take into account Vince throwing a curveball in there on everyone. I remember when Jericho was leaving, most people had him losing to Kevin Owens, but Jericho ended up winning the pay-per-view match that they had, only to drop the U.S. title 2 days later to Owens on SmackDown before leaving. So since the split of Enzo and Cass, Enzo has been a backstage nightmare. He's ticked people off complaining about the split initially. He was kicked off a tour bus for running his mouth about how much money he makes. He's been reported to be bringing his friends backstage, and these friends don't necessarily get the general how the locker room works. They're taking pictures, and that's getting everybody ticked off at him. So since then, he's been put on 205 Live. He's been verbally dressed down on Raw by The Miz regarding all of his antics. He was destroyed by Braun Strowman on the Go Home show before Raw. He was given a random red arrow just as Neville was coming to the ring. Calling for a Neville win, but always you got to be prepared for the Vince McMahon curveball. The Raw Women's Championship match is a fatal five-way. Alexa Bliss defending against Sasha Banks, Nia Jax, Emma, and the newly returned Bayley. Now, Bayley coming back on Raw sort of throws a wrench in things a bit coming into this. Before the Go Home show, Alexa, Nia, Sasha, Emma, it had been a fatal four-way. Raw has been consisting of the four ladies interacting with each other leading up to the pay-per-view, whether it's mixed tag matches, solo matches, whatever the case may be. Nia seemingly is a face now after dumping Alexa off her shoulders post-match a while back. Sasha's been a face for basically her whole WWE run so far. But on that Go Home show of Raw, Sasha was the first one to attack Nia after she helped Nia get the win against Alexa. So there could be a turn for Sasha that they're working on maybe. Alexa's been doing her typically excellent heel work. She's made Nia look like a threat to take the title. She's been a pest to Sasha this entire time in this build-up. And then we come to Emma. She tweets. She's the starter of the women's revolution now after beating Mickie James, and there's a tweet about it. She was absent from the Go Home Raw show, except tweeting about the five-way. She's lost clean to Banks during this build-up and really nothing else. I figured she was only involved in order to take the loss, and I still believe that she will in this match. But Bayley has been put in there after being back on Raw for about 3 minutes. Pre-injury, Bayley was in a terrible position. She was booked to look weak. There was never a time when they tried to build her as the underdog who eventually comes out on top. It's not the greatest thing to say, but maybe this injury can allow everyone to sort of hit the reset button on Bayley. At least here's to hoping for that, as she can be good if her character is done right. Now, as for the match itself, I think it could be great. Nia will probably spend most of the match fending off multiple people before dominating for a stretch. Alexa's got to do her best to hide and avoid all that she can when things are starting to get physical. But eventually, Sasha and Bayley are going to get in each other's way, and I can 100% see a Sasha turning on Bayley segment, move, bump, whatever the case may be, calling for an Alexa Bliss win here, as she's got to sneak a pin, sneak in a submission, something like that, and she is going to escape with the title. The Intercontinental Championship. Miz defends against Jason Jordan. So this is a weird one. Everything about Jason Jordan is hard to grasp as a fan. Angle's phone calls were at least an interesting twist on Raw leading up to this. Corey Graves was even involved in on this angle before this actually was done and revealed. There was at least a little bit of intrigue as this was happening, but at the end of the day, it wasn't that great. So Jason Jordan, his Angle's kids, and American Alpha were destroyed in the process. Leading into this pay-per-view, there's been a really, really big feeling that Jordan should be a heel. He gets no fan reaction. He's greeted with silence. Since the reveal, he was dumped from a battle royal in which Jeff Hardy went on to challenge The Miz. He's been beaten clean on Raw by John Cena and Roman Reigns in their feud, so he feels sort of like a toy with those guys. And now we're just supposed to take him seriously. Miz has been on fire for basically a year when you look at what he's been doing on the mic, what he's been doing in the ring. But he did have a never-ending feud with Ambrose over the Intercontinental title, but other than that, he's been money. He didn't get a good showing at SummerSlam. He was allowed to vent on it, or vent about it on the air, on the mic. He was the one to give Enzo his lashes on Raw about his backstage behavior. On the Go Home show, he went off on Angle for showing favoritism towards Jordan, calling Angle a deadbeat dad and Jordan a bastard as Raw closed. Miz has done all the heavy lifting for this match at the pay-per-view, but despite everything that The Miz has done, I am calling for a Jason Jordan win. I think WWE wants to see what Jordan can do with the title. They did a lot to get him on Raw. They broke up a tag team on SmackDown. They did the whole phone call angle on Raw, which lasted for months. After this match, he's got to have an instant feud with all three members of the Miztourage. Miz did really, really, really good mic work against SmackDown General Manager Daniel Bryan, even leading to the Talking Smack meme it's all over the internet that you can find. And then Miz is able to apply that anger towards Kurt Angle in the GM role on Raw moving forward. So Jordan gets the win, and there's the setup maybe. Looking at the Raw Tag Team Championship next, it sees Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose defending against The Bar, or Sheamus and Cesaro. Now, these two teams put on a fantastic match at SummerSlam. It was revealed that Cesaro is not a fan of beach balls either during that match. And coming into this pay-per-view, the biggest issue has been the length of time between SummerSlam and No Mercy. It forced creative to make a Rollins versus Cesaro, Ambrose versus Sheamus, or vice versa for seemingly forever on Raw. They did put on good matches. They were trading wins in smart ways, but it does feel like it's a little long in the tooth at this point. Having Gallows and Anderson thrown into the mix lately has been a refreshing breath, even though they seem to only been put in there to lose. And on the go-home show of Raw, the three teams put on an absolute great match. The in-ring promo Sheamus and Cesaro did prior to that triple threat match on Raw, they brought up that Seth and Dean aren't that close. They're ready to fracture at any moment. And while I can absolutely see that occurring, I don't see it happening so soon during this pay-per-view. So going to call for a Rollins and Ambrose win here in what could be a match of the night winner. All right, so we come to Roman Reigns against John Cena. And, well, there's not much to say as they have already said it to each other leading up to this point. Part-timer, hypocrite, barrier of young talent, and of course a bitch being thrown at Cena. No mic skills, being overhyped, being a Cena knockoff thrown back at Roman. Now, all of this has been entertaining to watch, even though they really weren't shooting on each other for real. It has been nice to see that WWE does listen sometimes, but as for the match itself, I'm not expecting a world beater by any stretch, but I am expecting a fairly hard-hitting one. It's not a no disqualification match, so I'm hoping they book it in a way that the ref gives these two guys a lot of leeway. After everything that's been said, it would be a shame to have just a standard match, so having them really beat on each other would be entertaining to see. I'm going to call for a Roman win in a match that I think is going to be a finish or kick out festival. Probably they end up shaking hands in the end as they'll respect one another after this match. Cena will go on Raw and hype how strong Roman is. And this, of course, it's all to get Roman over, and I can't see it happening even after this. If they want to get Roman liked, instead of shaking hands at the end, Roman should just kick the hell out of Cena. All right, to quote Jurassic Park, hold on to your butts. The Universal Championship. Brock Lesnar defends against Braun Strowman. And Frankenstein should take note because Vince and company know how to make a monster as well. In 1 year's time, Braun has gone from Wyatt family throwaway to one of the most popular wrestlers in the entire company. Backstage ass whoopings, tipping over ambulances, breaking the ring, throwing dumpsters, just to name a few, have made this must-watch television. Brock has nearly been unstoppable himself during this time frame. He's broken the Undertaker's streak. He's destroyed Cena. The post-Undertaker breaking of the streak matches that they had, it was his idea for Goldberg to beat him in a minute and a half. The Goldberg rematch at WrestleMania was brutal, and that has all led this to being must-see TV. Now, Strowman was legit injured over the summer, so this had to be put on hold as they were planning it for SummerSlam. There has been a Samoa Joe versus Brock match back in July, I believe, and SummerSlam, finally we got the Strowman versus Brock, kinda. It was a fatal four-way match, but we did get to see Strowman put Lesnar through two tables and throw a third on top of him. Lesnar retained, but it was clear that this match was coming eventually for us. And I truly have no idea who's winning this. I'm going to make a pick, but I'm expecting these two to hit each other with small buildings at this point. And I hope the match goes about 12 to 15 minutes because any longer, I think it could lose a little bit of steam and not be as effective as it should be. This is not a no disqualification match. So like I said with Reigns and Cena, hopefully it'll be booked in a way that the ref will afford them some leeway, do out of the ring spots, things like that. I'm going to call for a Lesnar win in what is going to be an absolute brutal match, I'm hoping. I can see Braun dominating the entire match, actually, and doing whatever big spots they end up going with. And towards the end, Braun basically costs himself the match, whether it's running into something or going for a big spot and missing it. And Brock comes out of this looking like he barely survived. He barely got the win. It keeps the title on Lesnar, and after everything they've done this past year with Braun, is going to keep him looking good and looking like the monster among men that he is billed to be.